If you have been following the Kenosha shootings on Twitter, you've seen it before. The accusations that the judge is KKK, he's a Klansman, he's racist. Well, we're going to read some tweets and then investigate this a little more thoroughly. Hello out there. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With his powerful brainwaves cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnny Walker Dread to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's the Johnny Walker Dread Show.
Okay, so this one says, the biased scum Judge Bruce Schroeder sent overt signals to the racist jurors that he sympathized with Kyle by his antics. Letting Kyle pick his jurors. Oh, no. More on that in a different video. And references to Chinese food. He referenced Chinese food. Oh, my God. So racist? Not allowing the word victims. Judge is a Klan shit brain. At least Judge Bruce Schroeder won't miss any more Klan meetings now that his schedule freed up a bit. United States of America, KKK, home of the Nazis who fled Germany. What? Let's give Ku Klux Klan Judge Bruce Schroeder a round of applause. I hope Judge Ku Klux Klan and Kyle Rittenhouse's best friend Schroeder's outrageous ruling against MSNBC is overturned. Oh, they're upset because the judge threw MSNBC out of the courtroom, which shows he's racist. Okay. Not that MSNBC didn't deserve it. Because following a bus is not illegal anywhere in America. Yeah, you don't know the law. Under your black robes of justice, you wear a white robe of the Klan. That speaks volumes to the biased nature of Judge Schroeder. He and Kyle Rittenhouse probably belong to the same Klan. Oh, Lord. And recognize one another by their white power signs. This judge sat so hard on the scale for the defense, you'd think Kyle was his bastard son. Does any of this sound even remotely logical, reasonable, rational? At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if the FBI found Klan robes next to a Proud Boys dues card in Judge Schroeder's closet. I swear for Jesus, between Judge Schroeder and his undying lust for Kyle Rittenhouse and the goddamn Nathan Bedford Forrest reincarnated asshole Klan member defense attorney in Ahmaud Arbery's trial, I just... Wait, what? Okay. It seems like Judge Bruce Schroeder Klan do or say whatever he wants, and he Klan get away with it. Oh, so clever. Did he replace the word can with Klan because he's so brilliant? Judge Schroeder probably isn't even in the Klan. Yeah, probably not. But he sure does their legwork. Okay, enough of that. Let's tackle the question. Is Judge Bruce Schroeder racist? Okay, now, we have National Public Radio here. Oh, boy. They're about as biased as you can possibly get with the coverage of the Kyle Rittenhouse case here. And this article is no exception. But this will give us a little clue as to what they're thinking about. As the nation awaits a Kyle Rittenhouse verdict, some raise eyebrows at the judge. Now, it starts off by talking about playing Jeopardy and stuff. We're not caring about that. On one day, Schroeder's cell phone rang with God Bless the USA by Lee Greenwood. And of course, everybody said, oh my God, he's a Trumper because that's Trump's song. That song dates back to what, the late 1980s. So, in fact, I think it was used by George Bush during his presidential election campaign. And people skip over the fact that maybe the judge just likes the song, maybe he's a little patriotic, and in fact, we kind of know he's patriotic. Didn't he have at one point the courtroom applaud veterans during the actual proceedings? I think so. Here's where it gets into the racist angle. Last week, Schroeder drew criticism for a joke some found racist about a lunch delay in court. He said he hoped the Asian food isn't on one of those boats in Long Beach Harbor. He's clearly stuck his foot in his mouth several times, said Chris Zakar, a defense attorney based in La Crosse, Wisconsin. It's the old school judge who shoots from the hip and doesn't really think about how this is going to be perceived. Now, let's take a look at what they're talking about. Here's the inappropriate Asian food joke. Now, this is where things get really funny. The judge presiding over the homicide trial of Kyle Rittenhouse confused observers after making a strange and off-color joke inside the courtroom on Thursday. Off-color? Since when is saying that I hope that food isn't on those boats is off-color? I hope the Asian food isn't on one of those boats from Long Beach Harbor, said Schroeder, as the court was preparing to take a lunch break. He appeared to be referring to the supply chain backlogs caused by congestion problems in California ports. And so what happened was that, well, for whatever reason, California ports had gotten really busy and basically created a log jam, and a lot of supplies and material that was supposed to be coming into the country from Asia was delayed. And Bruce Schroeder was just saying, I hope our food isn't on one of those boats because we'll never be able to get to eat it. And was it a very funny joke? No, I thought it was kind of silly, but racist? It goes on. But his comments were offensive and perceived as anti-Asian by some, and as placing blame on Asian people for a large-scale event. Where are they getting that? They ordered Asian food. And so he was joking around that this food coming from Asia probably can't get to us because they've had this log jam at the harbor. How is that placing the blame for the log jam on Asians? It harms our community and puts us in the crosshairs of microaggressions as well as actual physical violence. I mean, can you believe it? They're saying that because Judge Bruce Schroeder made a joke about Asian food being delayed getting to the courtroom because it was on these boats that were trying to get into the harbor, that Asians are going to get attacked in the streets. Yes, they actually are making that claim. Yang said it's clear the judge doesn't have cultural sensitivity. His remarks were meant to denigrate or minimize Asian Americans, and any Asian American that sees or hears his statement will understand that he's making fun of or mocking our community. Okay, I'm at a loss. I don't get it.
Anything else?
What time do you want to start?
Let's hope for 1 o'clock. I don't know. Hope the Asian food isn't on one of those boats in Long Beach Harbor. But let's aim for 1 o'clock.
How is he minimizing Asian Americans with this joke? I don't get it. Can somebody in the comment section explain the connection here? We have ordered Asian food. Now, obviously, the Asian food doesn't come from Asia. He was joking around about that. And they're having this log jam of traffic at the port, so if it's coming from Asia, it's probably not going to get there because of the delays. Where is the anti-Asian in that? I don't get it. All right, we read on. This is a great illustration of how Asian Americans are not immune from racial bias and discrimination in our criminal justice system. Oh, Lordy. Is there anything about that joke that indicates that Judge Bruce Schroeder would not give an Asian person a fair trial? We read on. And others just called the comment racist. All I can say is, old racist stereotypes die hard. What's the stereotype? What is the stereotype that's being furthered here? Is there something about Asians and food delivery that escaped my notice? What is the stereotype that's being forwarded? I just don't get it. Schroeder's comment comes a week after a juror was dismissed over a joke about the police shooting of Jacob Blake, which prosecutors said it suggested some sort of racial bias. Now, keep in mind, the judge didn't say the joke. I'm going to summarize what I remember, what I was told, Schroeder said last week. He was telling a joke. He told the officer he made a reference about telling a joke about why did it take 7 shots to shoot Jacob Blake, something to that effect. Both the defense and the prosecution agreed to dismiss the juror, and the judge admonished him while doing so. It is clear that the appearance to bias is present, and it would seriously undermine the outcome of the case. I don't know, it sounds like he's being pretty even-handed here. Now, let's take a look at something else here with respect to Judge Schroeder's racism. This is from Kyle Rittenhouse's bail hearing. Remember the one where they tried to get him thrown in jail because he wasn't living at his address? You remember that? So he's going to have to listen to Kimberly Motley. You know that I'm not particularly fond of her, primarily because I think she's the dumbest lawyer on the planet. But let's go ahead and listen to her talk and how he responds.
Your Honor, may I add something to that?
Okay, so she wants to talk, and Judge Bruce Schroeder is like, oh no, not her again.
I'll go ahead.
He basically thinks about it. He goes, man, I know what she does to brain cells. And there might be kids listening, they might have exams coming up. We can't be responsible for that. But at the same time, he has to keep things fair. So he thinks about it, goes, all right.
Okay. Thanks, Your Honor. And joining in what the state said, 30 days ago, the court, not this court, but there's another Kenosha County case involving also a double homicide where a male of color was given a $2.5 million bond. $2.5 million. And we ask that the court also take that in consideration.
So the court is expected to take into consideration that this other defendant is a male of color. Which case is she talking about? It has to do with a man named Jesus Medrano. And she's upset because he's a male of color and his bail is $2.5 million, while Kyle's is only $2 million. I know, it's a pretty bad argument, but it's even worse when you find out what good old Jesus Medrano did to warrant a $2.5 million bail. You see, Jesus decided he wanted to go rape his minor cousin. So this cousin and another girl are sharing bunk beds, and he gets on the top bed and is raping her, right? Also, his daughter was there watching the whole thing. Now you might think, that's pretty despicable, man. But, $2.5 million bail? Oh, that's not all he did. You see, he thought his parents might show up and try to stop him. So he brought a machete with him. And then when they did try to stop him, he killed them both. So he runs outside. He's covered in blood. And to make things worse, he's from Louisiana. So he's a massive flight risk. And she's trying to say that, well, his bail is excessive because he's a male of color. I don't think so. I don't think that's the reason why his bail was so high. So how does the judge respond to her argument? Does he say, oh, you're right. If a male of color has a $2.5 million bond, then we must have at least $3 or $4 million because this is a whitey. No, not quite. Listen to what the judge says.
Well, I will tell you that I am not going to decide anything in this case or any other on the basis of the color of anybody's skin, period. There was a decision made, in, I think it was 1896, Plessy versus Ferguson, where a decision was made on the basis of the color of someone's skin.
Now you may be thinking, why is he having to tell her about Plessy versus Ferguson? Well, I'm sure she's well versed in Plessy versus Ferguson. That's about all she knows. Well, anything else having to do with race. The rest of the legal statutes and case law, A
man who was, by the way, was 1/8 African American descent. And it was a test case. And the Supreme Court of the United States, which has a spotted history.
Does that sound like a racist there, huh?
On these issues. I'll digress enough to talk about Roger Brooke Tawney saying that a black man could never be a citizen of the United States in 1854, which brought on the Civil War.
Okay. Notice his expressions. Let's go back.
States, which has a spotted history on these issues. I'll digress enough to talk about Roger Brooke Tawney saying that a black man could never be a citizen of the United States in 1854, which brought on the Civil War.
Gee, that doesn't sound like a racist, does it?
And Plessy versus Ferguson, where Justice John Marshall Harlan issued a stirring dissent critical of the 8-1 vote of the court to permit segregation by state law in transportation, and said what an outrage it was and what harm it would cause to the country. And we suffered for a long time because of that, because decisions were permitted to be made on the basis of that. I don't know anything about that other case. I don't know who the judge was. I didn't set this bond, and I didn't set that bond. And so I'm not going to comment at all about that, other than to say this case came to me. It had an initial bond of $2 million set by Judge Wagner, who may be the same judge who set the bond you're talking about. I don't know.
Okay, enough of that. Judge Schroeder, racist? Hardly. In fact, he seems like he has very, let's say, progressive attitudes towards race relations. It certainly, as far as the law is concerned. Also, in my previous dumb argument video, I talked about his party status. He's a lifelong Democrat. Now, there's one more thing I want to show you.
Your Honor, thank you. And I would like to have my remarks on behalf of all the victims that are present. I have been given permission of that.
I'm sorry.
Survivors. I'm sorry. You're
this
right.
is a long-standing rule.
I appreciate
it doesn't apply just to this case. I never permit this, and it's been for years. Usually we talk about the complaining witness. I understand this is a little difficult, but the decedent or whatever, but I can't permit the use of the word victim or alleged victim because they're so loaded with things that can't be assumed prior to trial.
Now, everybody said, oh my, he's racist because he wouldn't let Gage and Anthony and JoJo be called victims. Well, keep in mind, all three are white, but whatever the case, the point I want to make is this. This has been a long-standing rule in his court. Binger, after the trial, acknowledged that he had always done this. And I will venture to guess that a very large percentage of those accused were people of color. In other words, he extended this protection for people of color probably more often than anybody else. So this notion somehow that the judge is racist is absolutely ridiculous. There is no evidence for it whatsoever other than we didn't get our way. He ruled against us. He must be racist. That's it. That's all they have. The only thing they can produce is a off-color joke about Asians, which nobody seems to be able to understand or explain. Essentially, they wanted Kyle convicted. They didn't care if Kyle was innocent or not. They wanted him convicted for political reasons. The judge has rules in place to make sure that you don't go to prison unless you've been proven guilty, and they don't like it. And so they call it racist. That's all they have. It's another in a long stream of dumb arguments. Like my videos, subscribe to my channel.